Welcome back, everyone. As usual, we are two dudes talking 80s. I'm John, my partner in crime, Lewis.
Hello.
I don't even know how to respond to that. Um, we're going to talk about our favorite subject, the 80s. And in this episode, we're going to talk about our favorite singers of the 80s because, man, there were some really, really talented singers in the 80s. So we're going to talk about some of our favorites. Lou, I know you had a lot of favorites in the 80s.
Definitely did, and I think we're going to be stepping on ourselves. And there might be some in here that might shock you that I'm calling out. Really difficult to pick out just a list of five.
It is, and yeah, I already have like a special, add-on, and we'll talk about that later. But you want to get this rolling on this bad boy?
Sure. Let me get one out of the way here. My friend Thorne, he's going to hate me for this one because he feels that once this gentleman joined this band, that he really sort of ruined the band. I'll agree that he changed the band a lot, but and he took the band into a different direction. But I don't think he ruined it.
Well, can I guess?
Steve,
Can I guess?
yeah, go ahead.
Did you say it already?
I started.
Uh, I was thinking you were going to say Joe Lynn Turner.
No.
Okay. Dang it.
Steve Perry of Journey.
Ah,
So great singer. And I remember going to a concert with Dave Castro. Dave just dragged me to this solo concert that Steve Perry was having. And I went, and it was truly one of the best concerts that I ever went to. He was just on it all freaking night. Great singer. And yeah, he did totally change the sound of Journey, made them different. But I thought I still loved Journey with Steve Perry. I thought that maybe they were even better. Sorry, Thorne. And yeah. So that's my first pick out of the gate.
well, you can't argue with the commercial success, right? And he is a phenomenal singer, just a wonderful voice. I was able to see him once perform on the Escape tour, so I was very pleased that I got to see Journey in their prime, like some of the people. But yeah, great singer. And then we were actually scheduled to go see him. I don't know if you remember this. We were with Dave Castro and we were in Lake Tahoe. And we went into Reno and found out that Steve Perry was going to be performing. And you guys got me all psyched out for it. I'm really excited. And we were going to go, and he canceled the show.
I do remember that. I had forgotten about it completely until you recently brought it up in one of our other episodes. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, didn't you say at one point he was doing a lot of his solo material, and then they brought down his tuxedo jacket from the rafters? He put it on and then started rocking out to some of the Journey classics.
Yeah, it was. I'm gonna go into a little bit of detail here. So yeah, he did start off the first half of the show with all of his solo stuff, and he had his hair in a ponytail and was shaved in the sides. And then in the middle of the concert, yeah, his traditional red blazer with the tails comes down from the top, and he's like looking at it, he's all like, no, I can't put this on, no, I can't put this on. Everybody's telling him, put it on. And he put it on. He took his hair out of the ponytail, and he did Journey tunes after that. It was great.
Wow, I would have loved to have seen that. And I was really bummed we didn't get that opportunity to see him in Reno. Unfortunately, I've never seen him other than that one time with Journey on the Escape tour, but I would love to. And I don't think he has any desire to perform anymore, which is really sad. But I know I'd love to see him. And I think he just kind of feels that he's probably not up to what he was, and, you know, decided not to perform. Don Dawkin, take a note. And yeah, so anyway.
Ouch.
Well,
Oh
hey,
man, ouch.
go watch some of those, the recent Dawkins videos and tell me I'm wrong. That's all I'm gonna say. All right, I'm gonna start this off with probably, one of my more obscure ones. I'm gonna have a few obscure ones. My first choice is Carl Albert. And for those that don't know who Carl Albert was, and you're looking at me like a dog that's been shown a card trick, Carl Albert was the singer for the band Ruffians and also later on Vicious Rumors.
Oh, all right.
And Carl Albert was just an amazing singer. He sounded kind of like a cross between Jeff Tate and Rob Halford. Actually, no, I'm sorry, Jeff Tate and Dio. So he could do the really high pitched screams, but he also, could do like the Dio kind of stuff, and just an amazing, amazing talent. Um, I remember at one point we were actually in contact with him. He had joined Vicious Rumors, and they believed they were going to get signed to a major label, which eventually they did. Um, but we had visions of like, oh, we're going to steal him. We'd love to get him in the band, and he was actually going to sing on our original demo, and he was going to be a hired hand. We were going to pay him to do it. He was going to learn the songs and then go in. Never worked out, which was fine because honestly, that first demo we recorded was complete garbage. Never worked out though. But I remember seeing him with Vicious Rumors at the Omni, and some of the band members were there, and he was amazing. I wasn't that crazy about the band Vicious Rumors, but Carl Albert was, next level. And we were supposed to meet with him right after he performed, and he came off the stage and he was sloshed. He was so drunk, and I was just like, oh my god, he could be that drunk and just put on that performance, because it was right after. It's not like, we saw him an hour later and he had time to drink.
Right.
He came like pretty much right off stage, and I could not believe that a guy that sloshed could have put on that kind of performance. It was pretty incredible. Sadly, those same demons kind of cost him his life at a very early age, because I think he was drunk driving and involved in a car accident that cost him his life,
Uh,
which is terribly sad. Huge, huge talent. Never gets the recognition he deserves, but one of my all-time favorite singers. Absolutely.
awesome. He was with Animal Chorus as well, wasn't he, for a little bit? Or am
No,
I thinking of
no.
somebody else?
You're thinking of somebody else. I don't know who
Okay.
you're thinking of, but it's not him. He
Okay.
was
All
in he
right.
was in Ruffians, and he went to a band called Villain, I think, or Villain and then Ruffians, and then Vicious Rumors. So
All right.
that's
All
his
right.
career that I know of. And apparently, when he first started singing, he was really horrible. But man, what a talent!
Very cool. Yeah, I can't say that I remember hearing any of his stuff, so I'll have to see if I can find some of that stuff on the web. I'm sure that it's out there.
I'll send you some. You'll be impressed.
Awesome. Awesome. The next one I'm going to call out is a lady that had a lot of success in the 70s with her sister. Of course, you know where I'm going with this one. And in the 80s, they had a resurgence. We've talked about them on our episodes before, and it's Ann Wilson of Heart. And she is just amazing. I mean, just the notes that she can hit and the power of her voice, and just incredible through the 70s and the 80s. So yeah, that's my next pick.
Great choice. I've actually seen her perform twice. Once very recently, solo, and she did some Zeppelin covers and some other covers, and still incredibly, incredibly strong voice. Obviously she's aged like we all have, but it really hasn't affected her voice. I don't know what her secret is, but she's one of those singers that still performs at a very, very high level and can still do what she used to do. So props to her. Excellent call out. She actually didn't make my list, but probably should have. But great one.
Awesome.
So I was trying to get away from the ones that people I always talk about, but I can't. So my second pick, I mean, ad nauseum, I've talked about her a million times. I'll probably continue to do so. One of my all-time favorite singers, and that's Taylor Dane. Um, I love her voice. I think she could sing anything. I'd love to hear her sing like a really hard rock song. She does some things that are kind of veer close to it, but she can do the ballads. I mean, you name it, whatever you want her to do, that woman can sing. Great performer. I've been fortunate enough to see her many, many times. Still has it. Met her once. Really nice lady. Can't say enough about her, but just love that voice.
No, that's a good call, and I thought about her as well, but I thought no, John's going to definitely call her out, so I'm going to let him have that one. There was a reality show that she was on a little while back, and I think you and I have talked about this, where it was I can't remember the name of the actress, but they're friends, her and Taylor Dane, the lady from King of
Leia
Queens.
Remini, yeah.
Okay. So, so in the reality show, Taylor Dane was recording a new album and they played clips of it, and it was really heavy stuff. It was like heavy rock. And I don't know if she ever put it out. So, I mean, if it's something that you were always curious about, it might be out there and just didn't get got a airplay.
Yeah, it might be. There was another, I don't know if it's the same show because I never saw it, but I remember MTV did a show I like called like Reimagining, I think it might have been called. And I remember they did Vanilla Ice, Vince Neil from Motley Crue, and they did Taylor Dane. I saw the Vanilla Ice one. I saw the Vince Neil one. I never saw the Taylor Dane one, and I've looked for it. I've never found it on the internet. I was always curious to see because they kind of talked about changing their image and bring them in with like a different type of songwriter and go in a little bit of a different direction, that kind of thing. For Vince Neil, they actually tried to get him to be healthier and they put him with a trainer, a physical trainer to kind of improve his cardio and things. So it was an interesting show, but for whatever reason, I never saw the Taylor Dane version. I don't know why it didn't get replayed like those other ones did.
Ah, bummer. That sounds like it would have been neat to see.
Yeah, yeah. If you ever find it, send it to me because I've never seen it.
All right, good deal. Good deal. The next one, of course, I have to mention this guy because he has been a staple in my music collection forever. In high school, everybody knew me because I'd always go around going, Dio rules. So Ronnie James Dio is my next pick. As far as heavy metal goes, and even not heavy metal, but as far as heavy metal goes, incredible voice, super versatile voice, stuff that he did in the 70s with Rainbow, and I'm sure even with Sabbath that I can't think of in the 80s. um he could change his voice if he wanted to have a very sweet sort of solemn tone to his voice. He could do it if he wanted that raspy growl and the screaming voice. That was him too. Just super versatile guy, and it's incredible that he started off playing trumpet.
Yeah, larger than life, such a diminutive person, just a larger than life character. And I saw him in his prime with Dio on the Sacred Heart tour with the Dokken opening, and that was a great show. And then, of course, we saw him later on at the House of Blues in Anaheim. And I forgot, I think Doug Aldrich was the guitar player for that show.
Yeah, I don't remember. It wasn't anybody that I recognized at the
Doug
time.
Aldrich or Craig Goldie. I can't remember which, but again, phenomenal singer. Hit can do everything like you said, and what a catalog in the '80s. And I'm not a Black Sabbath fan with Ozzy, but I love the stuff that he did with Black Sabbath. I think the Dio stuff with Black Sabbath is definitely preferred over the Ozzy stuff. I know that's controversial, but that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.
Same,
Um,
same. I mean, I appreciate Ozzy and I like some of the Sabbath with Ozzy. I think that when Dio joined, that he took them to a whole different new level. And yeah, so I'm right there with you.
Absolutely.
So we'll both
Great.
get stoned. So well,
Wait,
stoned,
yeah, yeah.
with
Please get clarification on that. I don't want to be drug tested at work. Okay. Ooh. All right. I'm gonna go obscure again because there are so many great singers that don't get recognized, and unfortunately, this is another one of those singers that I love that has sadly passed away, and that is a gentleman that went by the moniker of Midnight, and he was with the Florida band Crimson Glory. So
Okay.
Crimson Glory to me was kind of like a heavier version of Queen's Reich, and Midnight sounded like if Jeff Tate went completely psycho. He just had this voice very similar to Jeff Tate. He could do these screams that were, probably only dogs could hear. But he also, there was something about his voice and the way he performed, especially the songs. He almost became a character in the songs. And instead of it just simply being reciting the lyrics, you can tell he just seemed a little off and made for great performances. Unfortunately, after their first two albums, they kind of tried to change their sound a little bit, go more into like the more of a Led Zeppelin type, which really didn't work and ultimately disbanded. One of those bands I've always wanted to see. Unfortunately, like I said, Midnight has passed away. I don't believe they're doing anything. We went to see them one time. We went to see them with Heir Apparent and Crimson Glory at the Omni. Our former drummer's band was actually opening for them, so we went to see that show, and both Heir Apparent and Crimson Glory canceled. So
Oh, wow.
really unfortunate. That would have been my one and only time to ever see them perform. Was super excited about seeing that, and sadly it wasn't to be. Never got to see them.
Ah, that's a bummer, man. So close.
So close, but same thing happened with Living Color. Living Color, we talked about Vivid, their first album, which is one of my all-time favorites. And we went to see them at the Stone, and we were there, and a sign on the door, Living Color canceled the show because of death in the family, which is unfortunate, but we didn't get to see them perform that night, and I've never seen them since. I kind of lost interest in them after the first album, but I tried.
That would have been a cool one to see too, especially with the Vivid tour. That is a really great album. The next one that I'm going to go with is somebody that made an appearance. Well, that's not totally true. He and I guess his bandmates backed up Alice Cooper in the 80s, I guess. So I can't say that he made his appearance in the late 80s, but sort of as a front man, I guess he did. It's Kip Winger and of the band Winger, and again, I think he played bass for Alice Cooper, and great singer, man, and super underrated. That whole band is extremely underrated. They just couldn't shake the whole Stewart stink from him after that was done with Beavis and Butthead. But the whole band was great. Kip is amazing. He's got such a great voice, and again, it's one of those very versatile voices. He has a tremendous range, and I just like the sound of it. The sound of his voice is really cool. So again, I think he's very underrated as far as what he does, and that's my next call.
That's a really good one. I was able to see Winger, I think, twice in their heyday, and I've seen them since. And I saw Kip Winger perform once solo. So, for those that haven't watched the episode, Winger was actually the last band to ever perform at the Stone before it closed down, which is a little bit of a trivia. And yes, I was there. Lewis wasn't. It was a weeknight. That was a good. I think it was Reb Beach's birthday too. I remember
Yeah, you remember you told me that.
yeah, because they're like, hey, we can go next door and buy Reb some porn, for his birthday. But great call. I didn't even think about him, and I think he's got such a great voice. My wife and I saw him a few years back in Las Vegas, and we just happened to be out there. We didn't go out there specifically to see him, and then when we were going out there, I found out he was performing a solo acoustic show, and I think we paid like $8. It was nothing to see him, and we went, and my wife wasn't really that thrilled about the idea. She thought it'd be kind of boring, and she really loved the performance as well as did I. And afterwards, was able to meet him, get him to sign a CD that I immediately sent off to some other person I don't recall. But it was a great time, great performance, and I think that's really the sign of somebody that's got that kind of talent. When you can sit there with an acoustic guitar, and I think he had like a percussionist for some of the songs, and just blow people's minds and be entertaining. You've got something there.
Yeah, I agree. Great singer, still is a great singer, and yeah. I wish people would give him more credit for everything that he does, right? Because he's super talented.
Yeah, I mean, classical. He was writing the tunes for a play based upon Jack the Ripper. I remember he performed one of those songs when I saw him acoustically, and he does a great birthday shout out. So, very talented person.
Awesome.
Again, I'm gonna go kind of obscure, but I'm actually gonna get away from the heavy metal genre and my obscureness. This band came out and were really big, and they kind of disappeared just as quick. But this woman made a huge impression on me, and that's Rindy Ross from the band Quarter Flash. Um, Something about her voice, she had this weird combination of innocence and sadness in her voice, and it's always stuck with me. I just love her voice. And I think one of the things about her is I can't say that I've ever heard a singer that sounds like her. I was trying to rack my brain, like, who sounds like Rindy Ross at Quarter Flash, and I can't think of anybody. I'm sure there's somebody, but I couldn't think of it. And I think that, is another attribute to her, having this uniqueness of that voice, and be able to perform these pop hits. And I was actually doing a little bit of research on the band. She's still with her husband. That's amazing. And they still perform in the Pacific Northwest from time to time, or at least they did pre-COVID. I haven't seen anything recently, but I'd love to see her. And in addition, she was a really cool sax player, so bonus points for that.
Awesome. No, really good call. And I thought about her. The only person that I think of that sort of approaches her voice is Patty Smythe. For some reason, I always confuse those two. But yeah, the lady from Quarter Flash, she's got much more tone in it, much more of a sultry essence to it than Patty Smythe does. So sorry, Patty, but yeah, I would definitely rate her a little bit higher.
Very cool.
All right, let's see who's next on my
I think
list.
it's your last one.
This might be my last one. I didn't even have to look at my list until now. Sure, let me go with him. All right, I will end it up with a heavy metal legend, and he started out again in the 70s. He replaced Ian Gillan in Deep Purple and sang with them for a while until he broke out on his own with a band called Whitesnake. And in the 80s, Whitesnake was on fire. They just came out with their self-titled album Whitesnake, and he's a great singer. Everything I've heard about him, he's a great singer. He's legendary for doing things in one take. He's just super precise. The live performances I've seen of him on YouTube have been great. I never actually got to see him live, but again, a super talented guy, crazy range. Had to bring him into the list.
I actually was able to see Whitesnake in their heyday on the yeah, it was the 1987 tour. And you think about the band that he had. I mean, it was very disappointing that he couldn't make things work with John Sykes, because they put out two great albums. And John Sykes is, another talent that doesn't get enough credit. But he really brought Whitesnake to whole new levels with Slide It In the 1987 album. But you think about the touring band, and you basically had Ozzy Osbourne's rhythm section of Tommy Aldridge, Rudy Sarzo. You have Adrian Vandenberg, which is one of the all-time greats for guitar players, and you had Vivian Campbell from Dio and Def Leppard. So that was a great show. I think the biggest disappointment was, sadly, the guitar solos. Like, they had a section when they did guitar solos, and it just didn't blow me away like I was expecting it to. But great performance. I saw him a few years ago opening for Foreigner. I saw him open for Priest as well. He's up there in age, so he's definitely lost some zip on his fastball. And I don't think the higher range was really in his wheelhouse. I think they were kind of convinced to do that by Geffen and John Kolodner. And I think that might have put a premature end to his voice being what it was, which is sad. But then sadly, they're supposed to be doing what was going to be their farewell tour with the Scorpions, but David's had some ongoing health issues, and they had to cancel the tour with Scorpions. So hopefully he gets the final send off, that he deserves for such an illustrious career. But excellent pick. And the fact that he has the bluesiness of that voice, along with the more modern at the time high screams and everything else, really talks to his versatility.
Agreed.
I was said I was going to do this as a special, but screw it. I'm going to give this guy another shout out because, I just want to give something to some of these artists, like I said, that maybe not don't get the attention that they deserve. And so my last and final pick, even though he only got one album out in the '80s, that's going to be Dirk Kennedy from the band Hitman. Another gentleman that kind of comes from the Jeff Tate school, but very theatrical voice, amazing talent. One of those bands, Hitman was a band I really wanted to see. They did their debut album, came out in the '80s, and I think their second album came out in the early '90s, and they disbanded. One of those bands that I had always wanted to see. And prior to COVID, they actually reunited. They were going to be playing in Greece, of all places. And so they were doing a warm up show in Brooklyn. So I had never been to New York. I had already had tickets for the Judas Priest concert the night before. So I went to the Judas Priest concert, drove to the Flyaway in Van Nuys, slept in my car, got out of my car, went into the Flyaway, flew to New York, and a day or two later, I saw Hitman perform. And it was pretty much the original members, except for sadly the original bass player died. But it was just, I finally got to see Dirk Kennedy perform, and he was fantastic. They only performed stuff from the first album, which was a little bit of a letdown, but it was still great to see them. Got to meet him afterwards. What a nice guy. It was just a great performance, and I was able to finally say that I had saw the mighty Hitman perform. So they did get back. They put out another album, and his voice is still amazing. One of my favorites.
Super cool, man. That's crazy, man. That's like when we were back in 21 or something. Watch a show, go sleep in the car, catch a plane, and I mean that's not stuff I could do at this point anymore.
Yeah, trust me, it was not something I was, looking forward to. And I didn't know New York, and I didn't know, how I was going to get around or anything because I didn't get a car. So I took a taxi to the hotel. I knew it was within walking distance of the venue, but I quickly learned about the public transportation system in New York and the subways. So I was able to get around and have a really good time. But again, it was worth it to say I finally saw Hitman and saw Dirk Kennedy perform. So that'll be my final pick.
Super cool, man. Super cool and great story.
Yeah, sorry, Pat Benatar, you got bounced, but it's not like she needs the any more attention. Dirk Kennedy does, so that's kind of where I went with that.
Yeah, Pat was on my list too.
Huh?
Pat was on my list too as a backup.
Yeah. I just, sometimes it's nice to, hopefully introduce people to some talent that they're not familiar with, because there's a lot of it out there. And in the '80s we had a lot, and there's people that I regret not having more space for. Even though I'm not a huge fan of his music, Luther Vandross, another one that I debated about, and I was actually able to see him perform once in the late '80s, early '90s, and what a voice, what a talent. So
Nice,
but,
nice.
when we limit it to 5, you can only do so much.
Indeed, because there's still more on my list that I wish I had time to talk about. Part 2 brewing.
Part 2, there you go. Anything you want to add before we shut this thing down?
Oh, tons, but we'd be here forever. So no, I think we're good.
All right, well, as always, thank you guys for watching. Who do we miss? Who didn't we talk about that you feel we should have talked about? Love to hear your suggestions. If you do check out any of the more obscure stuff we talked about, and you liked it, please let us know about that. We'd love to know that we turned you on to some new music or some new talents. And as always, Lewis, take us out, brother.
Peace out.
Thank you, guys.